From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Hi there, my name's Kate Hoelterhoff. I'm from Carnegie-Mellon University, and I'm in the English department there, so thank you for all being so welcoming. I'm here to speak about digitizing illustration, specifically in terms of a digital archive I edit titled Visual Haggard, the Illustration Archive, which you can access at visualhaggard.org. Visual Haggard is intended to preserve, centralize, and improve access to the illustrations of popular Victorian novelist H. Rider Haggard, who was born in 1856 and died in 1925. The majority of Haggard's approximately 50 novels were lushly illustrated, many of them repeatedly in different editions and by different illustrators. Haggard frequently serialized his work in illustrated periodicals over the span of several months, and then published the full novel in illustrated book form. Illustration was always an essential part of reading Haggard's romances during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. However, most recent published editions of Haggard's novels, from Penguin and Oxford Classics, for instance, omit these visual texts. I know of no current illustrated editions of Haggard's enduring King Solomon's Mines, and while a few editions of She include illustrations, there's been little nuanced attention paid to this novel's 3 different illustrators and editions. To give you some idea about what is lost through this absence, here are 4 different versions of the Shirt of Amonartus, an artifact that plays an instrumental role in the action of She. The color, size, and details afforded to each of these versions makes this a fascinating example of what a digital illustration archive can achieve. H. Rider Haggard is representative of a larger trend in print history. A great number of British and American novels were illustrated for their original publication. I would guess that most of the people in this room are familiar with Thomas Hardy's Return of the Native, as well as Henry James's The Turn of the Screw. But I would guess that very few of you are aware that illustrations accompanied their initial publication. These canonical Victorian texts can be easily located in different online archives such as Project Gutenberg, Google Books, HathiTrust, an Internet Archive, and in a variety of formats, including PDF, EPUB, and HTML, but tracking down their illustrations poses more of a challenge. While digital archivists have begun the monumental project of collecting, scanning, transcribing, and making readily available these texts that are out of copyright, the visual components of these texts are often receive short shrift. I propose that digital archivists turn their attention to remedying the absence of the visual. While I'm gratified that Visual Haggard currently catalogs over 900 annotated, searchable, and high-quality images in an open access format, H. Rider Haggard is only one author out of hundreds whose illustrations have entered the public domain and yet remain all but forgotten. I've devoted several slides to comparing the quality of illustrations readily available on Visual Haggard on the left with alternate versions from more verbally based archives on the right, as well as a microfilm scan that I obtained through interlibrary loan. You can see that online archives foster a range of image qualities, but many texts are scanned haphazardly, in low resolution, and in poor DPI quality. The delicacy and nuance of rendering is often forfeit to text-driven black and white. And this is the microfilm. Yeah. All right. Okay. The delicacy. Yeah. So the little consideration of paper quality is taken into account. And finally, as Haggard's Shirt of Amonartus demonstrates, it is also very rare to find 2 specific editions of an illustrated book, a text that, to which a dedicated illustration archivist must devote herself. But a more insidious problem, and one that I've been unable to resolve, is obtaining high-quality scans of the serialized versions of Haggard's novels. Periodicals such as Harper's Magazine, Windsor Magazine, and The Ladies' Realm, in which the nearly illegible microfilm scan of Haggard's Fair Margaret is taken, continue to be relatively uncommon. And many are behind a paywall. Right now, Visual Haggard only archives illustrations from books because these access and cost associated barriers have been insurmountable. As Visual Haggard's editor and director, I collect and curate the illustrations of H. Rider Haggard's novels to propose an alternate attitude towards illustration. To summarize, okay, let's go through these. Okay. Illustration digitization first provides access to these illustrations. Access enables a historically authentic reading and viewing experience and broadens research and pedagogical possibilities. The second is to curate, meaning that digital archivists should mediate and contextualize illustrations, illustrators, and print history. Third, aesthetic. Digital illustration archives must provide relatively high quality images that can be viewed intuitively on multiple platforms such as laptops, smartphones, and tablets. 4, illustration archives should facilitate comparisons by juxtaposing different editions and permitting viewers to create their own relationships. I propose looking to illustrations as a necessary enhancement to the lay reader and a valid area of study to literary critics, art historians, and book study scholars. Thank you. Michele?
Hi, my name is Michele Kimpton, and I am from the DuraSpace organization. I'm here today to talk briefly about a partnership between DuraSpace, Chronopolis, and Deepin. So these are 3 projects that are interested in preserving cultural heritage scholarship that our institutions are stewarding for the long haul. And what's interesting to this particular community is that 2 of the projects, DuraCloud and Chronopolis, actually were born out of NDIP projects. So it was great to see those 2 projects come together to do more than either project can do on its own. So what is this alphabet soup? For those of you that aren't familiar with the projects, Chronopolis is a dark archiving trusted digital repository solution, which is actually offered as a service by UC San Diego. DuraCloud is an open source software for archival cloud storage with a layer of preservation services, things like fixity checking and multiple copies and multiple geographies. And that software is also run as a service by DuraSpace. Deepin is a project to create a digital preservation network for preserving our scholarship, our academic and cultural scholarship. And that project is run through a member consortium and headed up by Steve Morales. So why would these 3 projects come together to partner? Because we are all doing very similar things. However, we offer different advantages and benefits if we combine those technologies. And so working together to create one open source solution really provides a much more flexible end-to-end system for institutions that want to preserve their content for the long run. Also, what is unique about this particular collaboration is everything is created by the community for the community. It's all open source, and it's all funded by folks in this room, the government, and members of these institutions. So what is this preservation solution? There are, you'll see a number of layers on the top, which is where institutions typically are managing their content. They might have it in a file directory, they might have it in a repository, they might have it in another system. And where the preservation starts is that content is then ingested, in this particular solution, ingested into DuraCloud, where then you can make 1 or multiple copies at UC San Diego, at Amazon, at Glacier. How does it get into the preservation network from there? A copy of that content is then transferred from DuraCloud into Chronopolis. Chronopolis is one of the Deepin preservation nodes, and then that content is replicated a minimum of 3 times to other Deepin nodes in the network. So what this means is that you can have content that is, like I would say, light archived. It's cloud-based. You can easily access it, provide access to it if you choose to. But you can also take all or a subset of that content and put it in a dark archive, which is really the Deepin archive. So you get the benefits of both light and dark archiving through one solution. You don't have to ingest your content into multiple systems. You just ingest it once, and then you can disperse it as you see fit. So why may you care about this? Again, because it's open source, it's built by the community for the community, and when you add those things together, they create a platform for long-term sustainability, which when you're looking at preservation and archiving should be a key consideration. What is the sustainability of this solution over time? Who's going to manage it? And it's backed by academic institutions in the US, which are 100+ years old. So I'm talking about the Chronopolis DuraCloud Deepen node, but there are 5 nodes in total, and they all offer advantages for each institution depending on what you're looking for. So the other ones I'm going to mention are Hathi Trust, Stanford Digital Repository, AP Trust, and University of Texas. So I implore all of you, as you're thinking of preservation solutions, to think about, will any of these nodes solve your long-term needs for preservation, because the community is making a big investment in this direction. To find out more, you can talk to myself, you can talk to David Miner, Steve Morales, or Brian Schottlander, who's here from UC San Diego as well. Okay, thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Ted Westervelt from the Library of Congress, and I'm here to talk about the Library of Congress's recommended format specifications. The library has a mission, a very broad mission, which fundamentally means building a collection of content that is vast in scope, but is also vast in time. The point of this is not to create the collection that you and I can use today or tomorrow, but that our children, grandchildren, and generations down the line will be able to use, i.e., we want this collection, but it has to be something that will last. So how do we do that? We need to be able to identify preservable content if we expect it to last. Traditionally, we've used the Copyright Office's best edition statement. It's worked very well for us. In its most simple form, it says a hardback is going to last longer than a paperback. Pretty straightforward. It's helped us build a collection where we are not constantly worrying that the content we have is going to disappear tomorrow. Now, the problem with the best edition statement is it has 2 drawbacks. One is that it is not kept up with the technology we use to create our analog content. The biggest one, however, is it barely touches upon digital at all. It provides almost no support in identifying digital content which is more likely to be preserved. We've got to have something which is current and comprehensive, because as we all know, at least as much of the content being created today is digital as it is analog. And this is why we developed the recommended format specifications. The best edition statement won't work for us at this time. This will. It's a set of hierarchies of physical and technical characteristics. It applies to both analog and digital, and it seeks to maximize the chances of survival and continued accessibility of creative content well into the future. Now, happily, we do have a lot of work we could build upon. We have documents like the best edition statement, which may be out of date, but does provide some good basis. We have the sustainability of digital format guidelines developed within OSI, which is exceptionally useful, and we even have our collections policy statements. Beyond that, we have a talented staff covering all these different areas of knowledge, from technical expertise to understanding about access needs and what the marketplace is like. This couldn't be a sort of ivory tower project. It had to be something that was practical. We identified these 6 basic categories of creative content as the stuff out there that we would want to be adding to the library's collection as the basic starting point. Underneath each of these, we create the hierarchies down. And they work basically like this. You break the large groups into subgroups. So under still images is photographs, digital. And within that are the attributes which actually affect how we preserve things, like file formats. And then it gives you the options for that. What are the file formats? So under formats for digital photographs, we have TIFF, JPEG 2000. Each of these sets of attributes and options have 2 sort of groupings, preferred and acceptable. It's very easy to get caught up in trying to put things in order. The most important thing is the preserved ones, the preferred ones will actually encourage preservation. The acceptable ones won't hinder it. Okay. So we have this now. Before I tell you what we're going to do with it, it does not replace the Copyright Best Edition statement. It complements it. It does not mean we will not go off book. We always go off book in some cases, but we have to understand the costs of going off book. And moreover, it doesn't solve digital preservation. I wish that this 17-page document solved digital preservation. It does not. And there's no way we can pretend. The goal here is to set parameters. If most of our content is within this sort of fence, is that it will hopefully make digital preservation just that bit easier. Internally, We will use this as much as possible right now in our acquisitions for things that we don't have the infrastructure, where we haven't answered all those questions. At least we want this to be brought to the attention of our acquisition sources. They need to know that we will be using this when we do begin acquiring that digital content, which will be very soon. And we want to start conversations with them about that. Because as much as anything, we hope this will be useful externally as well. The point of this is not just for our own need, but preservation and long-term access is something that everyone in the creative process, from the creators to the vendors, the archiving services, they care about. We've done all this work, we put a lot of effort into it. We want you to have it, and we want you to use it. And we want your thoughts back on it. This is an ongoing project. What we have now is this year's. We are going to review and revise this for next year. And just honestly, from the past day and a half, there are all sorts of things I'm thinking, oh, we really need to think about that. And this is just, from my perspective, just hearing a few things. I know in this room there are people that could really help sharpen this up for our benefit, but for your benefit as well. So as much input as possible is greatly appreciated, because this is our common need, to encourage the creation, distribution, acquisition of content that will endure and remain accessible. This is what we all want. It's what we all need. Entire list of emails. We've got this up on our website. My email's there at the top. Just come and collar me if you have any questions or any interest in this. I think you can easily find this through digitalpreservation.gov as well. But please, take a look and let me know what you think, because I think this is something we could all benefit from. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jang Geun. I teach at Catholic University of America, and I'd like to talk a little bit about a topic I spent some time on for the past few years. And back in 2009, there was an article in New York Times. The title is "Digital Archivists Now in Demand." Now, 5 years later, that was quotation I got it just last month, and that description said once a trickle of digital archivist positions now grown to something closer to a flood. So what I'm trying to do, I try to kind of do a little bit work, find out what this new horizon and workforce about, right? So when I start to search, I think I just realized not just libraries and archives actually hiring digital archivists. Other people do, companies, they hire them. And so, but the focus of this and this data focus on the more traditional and electronic records. Digital archivists actually hide archives and special collections. And the data is not that big, but I'm trying to see some patterns out of this. I got 100 job descriptions posted since 2083 positions actually filled since 2001. So what are the patterns I'd like to kind of show a little bit? So for job description, that's 100. It's actually covered in 29 states out of 50. So here are the major ones: California, North Carolina got major ones. What is most interesting in this year coverage? So you notice that, I don't know whether you can see that, and actually between 2000 and 2010, that 10 years time, only got 8% of job postings. That means 92% of job postings we have for digital archivists for those memory and cultural heritage organizations actually post after 2010. Very close, very close. And how about positions filled? Again, the state coverage is 32 out of 50 states. We got some major names here. And I try to find out the start date out of this 83, but only 66 have the start date. So I just use that data. For this 66, and most of, close to half of them, 48 of them, no, more than half of them actually positions filled, and after 2010. I also noticed actually out of the 66 positions filled, there are 23 of them, about 1/3, has an end date. So that would tell us something, right? Okay, how about the people who have been hired? So I look at the professional degree they have. So out of the 83, 53 of them, they have that information. So I look at the graduation date. That's also very interesting because only 2 of them out of this and graduated before 2000. And more than half of them and graduate actually after 2006. That means within the past 8 years, we have this new workforce coming to us, right? So quite a few of them graduate after 2010. I actually happen to talk to a few of them sitting in this room, and most recent graduate. So what does this mean to us? Here's a kind of tentative conclusion I try to draw. And obviously, and the workforce is expanding quickly, right? So 92% new positions were posted after 2011, right? And 73 new positions actually started and after 2010, so expanding very quickly. And this group of people actually quite young, because looking at the graduation date and the positions filled, so 96% positions actually filled by post-2000 graduates, and 73 of them filled by post-2006 graduate. That means out of every 4 positions filled, 3 of them actually graduate within the past 8 years. And then 23% positions filled by post-2010 graduate. That means one out of 4 positions filled actually just recent grad for the past 5 years. So the other thing I noticed that this workforce actually quite fluid. That means about 35 positions actually have end date. That means people kind of tend to move around, and some of them move to similar positions. Some of them move to do something slightly different. So I think that's it's a small study because it's a part of a preliminary research for a major project. But I think that's some meaning. Some implications. Time is up. Okay, sorry. Yeah, and here and Catholic University, some of you will visit tomorrow, and also next year we're going to host a major event as well. I think so. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.